Entrepreneurs can get stuck in their head. If you dream of changing the world, but you're not sure where to start, the Add Valued Entrepreneurs podcast will help you transform your life and business. This podcast is for entrepreneurs who want more freedom and fulfillment from their work so they can live the life that they desire. You deserve it, and it is possible. It's time for you to add value. This episode is brought to you by Perfect Publishing. Perfect Publishing is a different approach to publishing a book. Perfect Publishing is sharing a project of hope. We carefully chose heroes of hope who exemplify living a life they created through faith, hope, patience, and persistence. No matter what page you open to in this mini cube of hope, you will find a leader with a big heart. You see, you are not alone. The authors may share similar challenges that only hope and action could resolve. Get your free ebook at getadoseofhope.com. Getadoseofhope.com. Our guest today is Michel. Chris is an author of The Red Chair Experience, founder of CM Consulting, sales and business consulting for the home services industry. Chris has over 30 years of sales and management experience and helps small to medium business owners increase sales by creating processes, metrics, and key performance indicators. Chris helps develop business culture and provides big picture views to guide your company. Michel, and Robert dig deep. Chris lost his brother to suicide, and it made him evaluate his 30-year corporate career and ask himself if he was making the impact that he wanted to make. Mental health is another topic that needs to be talked about like money. But for entrepreneurs, it's even more important than money because male entrepreneur suicide is one of the highest categories. You are not alone. You don't have to be alone, and you have to be willing to talk about the struggles and get the help you need to get the results that you are proud of. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so grateful that you're on the show. I'm grateful to our listeners that are listening, and just hope that we have a ton of value to share with them today.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being able
Absolutely.
to be here.
So I let each guest just share their entrepreneurial journey, and that kind of use that as our jumping off point. And so,
okay. All right. We're going to dive off into the deep end. Got it. So I'd been in the corporate world for probably 30 plus years, and came a point in my life where, and I realized this years ago that I wanted to teach and coach and train people. And that really brought me more joy than anything else. I've been an individual contributor in the sales side for a long, long time. And that brought value too, right, to what I did. And I really enjoyed that. But I learned that through that process, I also enjoy inspiring people to do what inspires them so that they may be fulfilled. Right. And so that kind of came about as I was making this journey. And I really became a coach trainer kind of all throughout the last half of my sales career. And so every time they brought on a new hire, they'd be like, okay, ride with Chris. He's going to show you the processes. He's going to show you how to do things, right? That kind of stuff. And so, but every time I decided, boy, I'd really like to get into sales training or something like that, I was met with resistance. And it was people within the sales industry or my bosses or, that kind of stuff that were like, yeah, but you're going to have to move here, or you're going to have to do this or do that. And you're not going to make as much and all this other stuff. And it never made any sense to me. So long story longer, about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, after my brother committed suicide in September of 19. And when someone around you, close to you, dies, whether it's by their own hand or something else, when they die, it really is kind of a wake-up call, right? You check your own mortality and you kind of take stock of where you are. And that's exactly what I did. Is I in the end of last quarter of 19, I kind of started looking around at what I was doing and realized I wasn't happy. And I knew that, my boss knew that. And then the pandemic hit 6 months later, right? And then we're being quarantined. And then I started writing a book, started doing all these things. And then in October of 20, I got the opportunity to shift. And I lost my job with that corporate company. And I started interviewing and trying to figure all that out, right? And then I'm like, why am I doing this? None of this sounds good. None of this sounds fun. And I had several people asking me, so Chris, when are you going to start your own business? And I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that. And then, again, I interviewed for maybe a month in 2020, in like November of 2020. And I went, yeah, this isn't for me. And so I quickly figured out how to start my own business and got some input, found some people to help me. And the rest, they say, is history. And so I started out with my own sales and really business coaching and consulting. And I really focus on the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, kind of the home services, but I'm not limited to that. I've just lived in that world for the last 18 years. And so it made it a little bit easier for me to kind of transition and work with them. So.
Yeah. So let's dig into that idea, that niche. First of all, sorry for your loss. And
Thank you.
obviously mental health has, come to the forefront over the last 2 years, but obviously your brother was wrestling with it even before the pandemic. And so,
sure.
So I want to acknowledge that. And I want to, everybody keeps saying, talk about it. But I don't know how helpful that is. Right.
So,
I just,
can I share?
Absolutely.
So this is what I'm finding is that for so long we haven't talked about it. For so long we've used it as something that's shameful, or that we just, it's the thing you don't talk about, right? And by talking about it, by having the discussions, number one, it frees you up. And it has done that for me. When I talk about my brother and his death, there are other people that go, oh, I can relate to that. I understand that, right? And they can. There's an understanding there, but then you start digging a little bit deeper, and I'll share this. It was really an eye opener. So I was sharing with my youngest daughter about my brother and about his death, and it was a great question, but she totally caught me off guard. She goes, Dad, do you think that you could do that? And we can all give the pat answer of, oh, no, I would never do that, or, whatever. But it really dawned on me that I need to think through this and figure out what is the answer. What's the appropriate answer? And the appropriate answer is we're all capable. And that's what I shared with her. I said, Robert, when I was talking to Katie, my daughter's name is Katie, and I shared with her, I said, yeah, Katie, we're all capable of doing this if we don't talk, if we don't share what's going on, and we don't openly discuss some of the things that we're going through, because that's the tragedy, right? When we think, oh, nobody else can relate to this, nobody else can understand this. When you open up about that, you'd be amazed at how many other people can relate, or they want to talk about it. And the pandemic has really opened up this avenue for us to have the conversation, because before this, communication was, again, very surfacey, and we didn't really dig into things. And so this gives everybody an opportunity, right, to kind of dig a little bit deeper and be honest with who you are and what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with having the thoughts. There's nothing wrong with having the feelings. But if you're not dealing with them and you're not talking about them, that's a problem. And that's where it kind of expands, right? And there's all kinds of books out there to talk about it. And that conversation with my daughter was a real eye opener, but it really helped me to understand, hey, it's okay to talk about it. There's nothing wrong with it, right? And in fact, we need to, so that we can help somebody who maybe, Robert, right now you're going, oh man, I've never talked to anybody about the deep, dark feelings that I've had about doing this or doing that. And can I succeed? And can I move on? And can I move forward? And right, I've been such a failure at this or this. And then you realize I'm not the only one. Right. And so it really is kind of it's an opportunity for us to dig a little bit deeper, have the conversations. And that's part of when I wrote my book, that was kind of the catalyst for it. It was therapeutic and cathartic for me to write this book. And then I find out that there's so many more people that are struggling with this emotional side of them, that they don't know what to do, right? They don't know how to handle it. And that's part of it, is just talking. It's just having the conversation and being open about it.
Well, and I think so. I have a military background. I have experience with first responders, and one of the challenges in those places, and then I spent 20 years in ministry, and even in that space, is that there's this perception, and I think many times self-imposed, that it's not safe to say something, right? If I mention that I'm struggling with mental health, they're going to take me off the line, right? They're going to take my job away. They're going to, I'm going to lose more, right? I'm already stressed out. I'm already freaked out, and it's not safe. It's not safe to talk about, and it puts my job and I think for entrepreneurs, they feel alone. They feel like they have to be the expert. They have to be on point. They have to be the front person, obviously, for their own company. And maybe they have some of that same stigma that they feel like, man, it's not, I can't talk to anybody. There's no safe space for me to talk to somebody about this without putting my business at risk, without putting my job at risk.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've learned in being a solo / entrepreneur is we're not alone. We don't have to be alone. Right. And part of the reason that I started a mastermind group. It was more of a mentoring group at the time, but it's becoming more of a mastermind group. And it's an opportunity for us as entrepreneurs to be honest about what's going on with our business and share our shortcomings and get help with those shortcomings. Right. And to your point, we can remove that stigma of, oh yeah, well, I'm going to lose this or I'm going to lose that, or people are not going to want to talk to me, or people are not going to want to work with me, or whatever. Right. Or they're going to put me on the bench. They're not going to put you on the bench. And if they do, it's for your own health. It's for your own health that they put you to the bench for a second so you can talk about these things and clear your mind and clear your heart and then move forward. And it's not that you're forgetting all that stuff. There's tragedy that we all deal with. There's hard stuff that we all deal with. And so, yeah, I'm really just trying to open up an avenue, if you will, for people to discuss those things, to have those conversations, and to be honest with who they are and where they're at.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And obviously one of the things on our show, at least my show, is to bring up these things that everybody says don't talk about. and money has been the prevalent one, but obviously mental health is just as relevant and
Sure.
just as challenging because of the stigmas and I think many self-imposed ideas, right? Our brain is, that voice in our head is saying, oh, you'll lose your job. Oh, they're going to take something away. Oh, your wife will leave you. Oh, your
kids won't trust you.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the voice in your head isn't exactly being your friend. If in the midst of all these mental health struggles, he's probably the problem.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, I realized recently that the problems that I struggled with for so long, the serial perfectionism and the overthinking and all these things came about from a negative situation or negative situations that growing up, I was never good enough. And it was just perpetuated in my mind, right? You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't. And instead of saying, hey, I can do whatever, right? We hear these messages all the time. You can do whatever you want to. And there's some truth to that, right? I mean, we can do whatever we want to, as long as we're not hurting other people. But there's some truth to that, hey, we are capable of probably far more than we ever thought. I never thought I would write a book. Mm-hmm. And yet I wrote a book. I never thought I would own my own business. And yet here I am, right? And so I never thought that I would be a strong emotional person for other men. And yet here we are, right? So you're right. We have to turn off that voice in our head and have conversations with other people to readjust that thinking in our mind that says you are good enough. And, a friend of mine said a long time ago, sometimes we need to be the parent or the boss that we want or need. Right. And we get opportunities all the time. So.
Well, and part of it is ignoring that voice or challenging that voice just enough to talk about, just enough to create the opportunity. Right. And, and even asking that voice, is that really true? Right. The idea like, well, you lose your job, but is that true? Because the reality is once you start talking about it, of course, it's not near as bad as the voice in your head has been telling you it is. Right. And, and that's not to say that these mental health struggles aren't real. They're very, very, very real.
Oh, yeah.
but once you start talking about them, their power starts to go away.
Right.
And I think that's the piece that
Yeah.
you and I have experienced relief by talking about things,
Right.
and understand the relief of getting outside perspective
Yeah.
is really powerful.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this. I mean, obviously, life ending. It doesn't have to be
Right.
this powerful that people have lost so much, lost hope to the level
Yeah.
of wanting to leave the planet, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge, right? Is
Sure.
it only takes a glimmer of hope to be willing to stay here and fight, right? To stay here and
Yeah.
stay in the battle. And I think for people that have, are at that place,
Mhm.
and the opportunity to talk, the opportunity to have a conversation, the opportunity to get an outside perspective is so powerful.
It's huge.
and
Yeah.
and I
It's
think
huge.
it'll change people's lives if we just all keep saying, not only is it okay to talk about it, but I've talked about it, and I
Yeah.
want you to talk about it, and I'm here to listen.
Right.
And I think
Well,
if more people say they're here to listen.
and the other side of that is, I think there's a stigma because people have gotten used to, oh, if I tell Robert, Robert's going to go and tell,
Ooh,
right, and he's going to use this against me. And if I tell my boss, then he's gonna keep me from advancing, right? And we get caught up in this world of somebody's going to use this information against me, or they're going to harm me with this information of vulnerability. And when you realize that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to have these conversations and talk about these things, guess what? You're human. You're just like everybody else, believe it or not. And those who say that they don't struggle with these things are lying to you. And you probably need to find new friends. And I
right.
don't say that lightly. We all have opportunity to readjust our friends, our people we hang out with. And if they're giving you the message that, life sucks and you're horrible and you can't do anything right, and I'm going to hold this against you, okay, it's time to move on and leave that person behind, right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I went through a time recently where I wanted to develop new friendships because I didn't feel like I was getting what I was wanting or needing from these other relationships that I had around me. And so I had to revamp some things. I had to redo some things and stop talking to certain people and stop reaching out to certain people. And now I'm surrounded by people that are far more positive and far more giving and far more, right. They're lifting my game, if you will, right. And all of a sudden I'm going, oh crap, now I got to step up. Right. But it's good. I mean, I'm I'm meeting people all the time that are really helping me to step up my game and to think more all the time about how I can serve others and how I can, contribute to what they're doing.
Absolutely. I think obviously we talk about connections, we talk about the value of connections for building your business, but the value of connections for your personal development is so powerful, right? I mean, all the personal development specialists talk about that. You become the amalgam of the 5 people closest to you.
Right.
And if those 5 people are negative victims of the world and getting beat up constantly and beating you up constantly,
Yeah.
and I think that's pretty powerful, right? Even if you're in a job and the boss uses your statement against you, it's time to get a different job.
Yeah.
If your family's using it against you, it's time to make some changes, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
I
time to
think,
get a new family.
yeah, I
And
mean,
people think I joke about that, but that's true. I mean, your family is who you want to have around you. It's not necessarily the people you were born into, right?
there
And
you go.
sometimes we need to step outside of that and go, my family is here. These are the people who love and support me, and they do it in such a way without condition, right? And you get to create your own family, right? We get that opportunity to step outside and say, this is my brother, this is my sister, right? This is my mom, this is my dad, this is right, these are my kids. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's so powerful, and I think the opportunity to be your authentic, vulnerable self, um, is going to create more connection and more
Mhm.
value in relationships than putting on these facades, right? Than wearing these masks of
Right.
pretending to be who we think. See, we never even ask people who they think we should be, but we pretend to be who we think they want us to be.
Yeah, it's
And I think
crazy, isn't
that's
it?
the big, yeah, of course it's crazy, right? Like if you
Yeah,
put it down on paper and looked at it, you'd go, well, that's lunacy, right? And yet
right,
that's what we're all trying to do.
right.
So challenging. So obviously you've had a journey of authenticity for yourself.
Oh
And
yeah.
how has that helped you in presenting your business and making this transition from corporate to entrepreneur?
It really has been fascinating because, like you said, you gather around you people that are they're either going to be in your corner or they're not. And if they're not in your corner, then maybe it's time to move on, right? And coming out on my own, if you will, doing this business on my own, I found my support system. I found the people who really want to support me in what I'm doing, and not just in words, but in deeds, in connections, in different things. And it's having those conversations and being able to be vulnerable to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, right? To have a mentoring group or a mastermind group that's you can be honest with. And these kind of conversations are the ones that we need to be having on a regular basis, right? And unfortunately, people are afraid of those conversations. They're afraid of the depth of the conversations for whatever reason, and maybe they just aren't used to it. Maybe they're afraid of it simply because they don't know. And that's what fear is. It's fear is derived from not knowing. And so when we don't know about something, we either can look it up, right? We can check it out, we can learn, or we just live in fear of this thing, this situation, this person, right? And so it's just this continual learning process.
Well, and I think fear, um, so many people are trying to control things that they can't control, right? And we've seen that through this last couple of
Oh
years,
yeah.
from the government down to the our next
Oh
door
yeah.
neighbors and our own family, right? Trying to control chaos.
Yeah.
And if you get caught up in the chaos and the drama, which our world markets drama, we do.
Yeah.
People pay to watch it, people pay to see it. That's why the news propagates it. Everybody can complain about the news sharing all this negative drama, but if the people stopped watching it and paying for the commercials, the news would
Hmm.
change to something different and would change to
Yeah.
something positive. So I think we have a natural inclination to the drama, and
Sure.
and that and then there's that, if you tie onto that inclination to the drama, this idea that I have to try to control it, right? Like, I mean, obviously right now there's a crap ton of going on, and so much of it is driven by fear.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me. My wife and I just toured the Holocaust Museum in
Oh, wow.
Washington D.C.,
Yeah.
and they've got a special exhibit of, basically it's titled, what did America know and what did America do?
Mm.
And 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 you just, it's very well put together because it talks about, basically World War I had ended. It was this war over there that was their problem,
Right.
but we had to go fix it, and we
Right.
lost a lot of men in trying to fix it. And then this depression, economic depression, that
Right.
basically people are standing in food lines that they've never had to do before, right? there's this
Hmm.
there's this whole unknown of all our money disappeared, and
Yeah.
so now there's a financial situation, and so everybody was pretty much, hey, this is Europe's problem, this is not our problem, this is,
Mhm.
and of course they had no idea, right? they
Yeah.
they believed this was the Jews and Hitler needed to just figure it out. They had no idea that he was exterminating people by the
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands a
Right.
day. And of course that would have changed the perspective, I hope. Like, I'd like to believe,
Right.
but and of course you can see as America, you know, got woke up to what was really happening. But it was all being driven by the fear of that unknown,
Sure.
the fear. And it's interesting is having gone there just this year and realizing this economic situation, and now this war in Europe, and now and this, now we're going into a recession, and coming out of this pandemic, and so much unknown. So much is being driven by fear and
Yeah.
negativity, I'm like, wow, no wonder our political situation is just blah, right?
Yeah.
And I quit watching the news years and years ago, and yet it's still because
Yeah.
I've chosen to be intentional, not just with my relationships, but intentional about what I feed this
Right.
object between my ears, because I'm I'm coming to recognize how powerful it really is. And
Yeah.
and it can spend a whole bunch of time regurgitating all this negative
Mhm.
stuff in the world around me that I have no control over, or I can focus on the things I do have control over, and the people
Right.
I can serve, and the people I can love, and the people I can encourage and lift up and add value to their days. And and of course that's so much more powerful, right?
Yeah.
Because now I'm focused in what I can do, and my I don't get caught up in what I can't do and what I can't control, and I'm not carrying
Yeah.
stress from all of this stuff around us. And
Right.
but it's fascinating to me the number of people who are caught
Yeah.
up in all this stuff they have no control over. And it's interesting, obviously, in the church, and I've been around AA enough to know the serenity prayer,
Hmm.
and recognize how powerful that is for our world needs this idea,
Right.
right? that
Yeah.
that focus on the things you can control and let go of the things you can't, and God, give me the wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
That's really, really, really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I've kind of taken on this mantra that I'm exactly where I need to be right now.
Mm.
Right. And to your point, it's removing all the other trash that's there, right? Thinking, well, I need to go and take care of this and help this and help this and do all these other things, and trying to take care of myself. If I'm not taking care of me first, then I'm really setting myself up for failure, and then I can't help other people. It becomes the whole, when the airplane goes down, you got to put the mask on yourself before you can help anybody else. Otherwise you're useless, right?
Well, and
So
that it's interesting to me. It's my wife works with women specifically, and it's fascinating, that they still give that instruction to the whole flight, right? But they specifically go to each mom and they remind the mom, look,
hmm,
put your own mask on first,
sure.
because we're asking you to do something that's going to go against your motherly instincts. Your
Right.
motherly instinct is going to say, I got to take care of my baby. I got to take care of my baby. And
Right.
so they remind them at the beginning of every single flight. And then
Yeah.
they go mom to mom to mom to mom, every child on the plane, and now the dads too, for some that are traveling,
Yeah.
single dads. But the reminder for a mom, because this is instinctive, to
Yeah.
protect their children and sacrifice themselves for their children.
Right.
But you can't help your children if you can't help yourself. And
Right.
it's a huge reminder. So I love that you're exactly where you need to be. And that can be so powerful in your
Yeah.
relationships, obviously, in your time with your daughter, in your time with your wife, right?
Yeah.
Being present is so important. And I think for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, we can get so distracted by our business and all the things that are happening in our business, and of course the big giant to-do list and the overwhelming calendar. But allowing yourself to say, you know what, this time is for this person, right, that I'm
Hmm.
facing, that I'm sitting with, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm present. I want to be there and not have my brain someplace else. That's super powerful for yourself when you're alone.
Yeah.
Right? I'm exactly where I need to be in what I'm doing, in what I'm believing, and but I'm also able to be present with my family, with the people that are important to me, even with clients. Right? When I'm meeting with a
Right.
client, I'm able to be present.
Right.
That's a very powerful tool, in
Right.
obviously in coaching, but just in life, in conversation, and living in the moment. It's all we have, right? And so
Yeah.
much of our life gets caught up in other stuff, and we miss the moment.
Yeah. Well, we're so worried that we're going to miss out, right? That's the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And we have to videotape everything, or we have to record everything, or we have to, right? We have to make sure that we've got our phone out so we can say, oh, I was there and I did this. But when was the last time that you just lived in the moment? When was the last time you put your phone away, right? Put it on do not disturb, left it in your car, left it at home, right? And you were there, to your point. You were present for whatever activity it is that you're doing, right? And can you do that? And that's tough for people, right? Because we live in this world where I have to show everybody that I'm doing these awesome things, or I have to be a part of this or a part of that. I've gotten to participate in a number of things, and I don't have them recorded, but they're in my mind, right? They're etched in my mind, and they're etched in other people's minds, and the things that we got to see and the things that we got to do and be a part of. It's all, we got to figure out how to do that more often.
We will be right back after this short break. This episode is sponsored by the newly released book, Dream Life Planner, Move from Tired and Overwhelmed to Free and Empowered by Noelle L. Peterson, available on Amazon, or you can order a personalized signed copy at Empower, EMPOWER 2 dream.com. That's Empower 2 dream.com. If you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends. Welcome back. Let's get back to more greatness. Yeah, I don't know that documenting the experience takes away from the experience, right?
Yeah.
And you actually miss out on something because you're too busy trying to take a selfie in the middle of the crowd. Yeah,
you're about to get hit by a bear. Yeah, and I just want to take a selfie with a bear. Maybe we should let that one go. But yeah.
Well, I thought about it. I was thinking about it just this morning. I read my Bible and do this morning routine, and then I pulled out my phone and was trying to get to a certain app, and I'm like, "There's 5 pages of apps. What? When did I start carrying around this machine that, and it's fairly recent, right? But now all of this stuff is coordinated through that silly phone. Like and not that I want to go back, because I love the technology. It makes our conversation possible. It makes this podcast possible. It does incredible things. And yet there's still a piece of it that's like, holy smoke, am I a slave to this thing? Like I want to make sure that I'm able to set it down and I love the idea of, like taking my Sundays and just not, just leaving the phone on the charger and spend a day without it. Like, I don't really need it that bad.
Right.
Oh, so crazy, man. This is so good. All right. So obviously you started in the niche that was, close to you. How helpful was that? I think one of the things entrepreneurs really do struggle with is this idea of niching down, this idea of picking a target audience, and for the people that don't have this tight connection to a community, to a language, to that kind of connections that you had, might not understand the value of. What do you mean you're a coach for HVAC guys or HVAC companies, right? Because from them they'll be going like, is there enough people? Right? Because that's the worry, right? That's always the worry. There's not enough.
And we live in this world of scarcity, right? We're being taught that we're constantly being told that there's just not enough, and you have to get more and more and more, right? And it's why you have these people that are focused so much on making all of this money, and to what end, right? So what I encourage people to do especially with the entrepreneurs, when you niche down to a specific group that you're comfortable with, that you've been working with for years, it helps your business, doesn't hurt it, because now you have a clear message. You have a very focused message on who you need to speak to and how that works. The flip side of that is, if you are trying to please everybody, if you're trying to talk to everybody, you have a very convoluted message, and it can get lost, and people may not know who you are trying to help, right? I used to say, hey, I'm just here trying to help small to medium business owners who are self-managing sales and shouldn't be. Well, that's a cool little message, but at the same time, it's so broad that you don't really hit anybody with that, right? And we talked about the small to medium business owners who are self-managing sales, but the reality is this: I focus on heating and air, plumbing, and electrical companies. Oh, I know a couple of those people. And what do you do with them? Well, I work with their sales team. I work with I set up their processes, metrics, KPIs, right? I help them to do these things. Oh, and by the way, I used to run heating and air conditioning companies, so I'm also helpful on the business side, right? I know how to read a P&L. I know how to build not just the spreadsheets, but I know how to set up the metrics and the KPIs, the key performance indicators, to help you to set yourself up for a win, as opposed to hoping, right, that we can do this excuse me, hoping that we can, maybe do something that'll hit. And it's when we niche down, when we really focus, when we narrow our focus on what we're good at and what we're comfortable with, we will be more and more successful. And that's the crazy thing that people don't understand. And to your question, are there enough? There's 7.5 billion people. I don't even know anymore, but there's so many people on this planet. There's over 300 million people in the US alone. Forget Canada, forget Mexico, forget any other country. Here in the United States, there's over 300 million people. There's 2 million entrepreneurs or more right here in the US alone. Why in the world can't we help? Why in the world can't we work with so-and-so or work with this particular niche, or right? Why can't we have this particular focus? You'd be amazed at what you'd be able to accomplish if you just focus on what you're trying to do.
Well, and that clarity helps in so many ways. First, I think the universe loves clarity, right? If you're clear on your goals and you're clear on where you're going, you're clear on what you're doing, clarity is so powerful. But clarity in your messaging is so powerful. Like you mentioned, I help, medium to small businesses in the, their sales functions, and everybody's like, oh, okay. No, I help HVAC companies
know anybody.
In the sales process. And they're like, oh, yeah, I understand exactly who that is. In fact, I've thought of 2 names, right, that are in HVAC businesses, and maybe, I can introduce you. And so now you've added referral stream, but the clarity in how you communicate with those people and the language that you use to an HVAC tech who's started his own company because he was really good tech, but he's probably not very good at sales, not very good at business, because the HVAC company he's working for did all those things for him, right? It's the E-Myth lived out, and you can speak his language. You can speak exactly to what he's jumped into, and you know exactly what he needs to generate his next sale, to generate, communicate well with the clients that he's serving, because the exact language he needs to use to show them, look. And I know they can get away with a lot, right? Because obviously a furnace is broken and it's, putting CO2 in the house. It's pretty clear. Look here, the meter says this, you need a new furnace. But then it's still a $10,000-$15,000 purchase for a home. And so, that's a lot of outlay for a homeowner. And so being able to help them in that conversation and give them options for, how they make that sale is super powerful.
Yeah.
And so, I think the idea of narrowing it down isn't about just buyers. It's really about marketing. It's really about language. It's really about, and feeling, right? These are people you hang out with. They're people that you have rapport with. They're people that you just feel right being around because they're your people. And when you're around your people, you don't have to fake it. You don't have to put on this salesy guy, right? You can just be you and say, hey, this is what I do. This is what I've done. And that's pretty powerful.
It is. And that's the key, I think, for a lot of people. They don't realize, hey, I've been there, done that, right? I've made the t-shirt. I've got the hat, right? I've done these things. Why wouldn't you want to focus on what you've done and the successes you've had? Now, if you don't like that particular industry, that's a different story. But if you want to focus and really clearly give your message, there's no better way to do it than focusing like that, right? I mean, it talks about that in Story Brand, building a story brand, right? And he talks about narrowing your focus so that you know exactly what you're talking about. And so there's clarity, to your point. There's clarity about the message that is being sent out, and people know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, clarity's powerful.
Yeah,
if you don't,
huge.
You need to know who you serve. You need to know what you offer them, and you need to know why you want to do it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think if you know those 3 answers, you can have pretty clear messaging that communicates those things, and people are going to go, oh, I know somebody, or oh, hey, he's talking to me, right? That's me. I think it's so powerful that your audience hears you and they go, oh, he's talking to me. Let me listen to what he's saying.
Right. Well, and you understand the message, right? It's not just that, oh, they're talking to me, but there's clarity of message, right? And so I understand what they're saying. I understand what he's getting at. Oh, yeah, let me be a part of that, right?
Absolutely. All right, let's dig into a little bit more. You mentioned the book earlier. Let's dig in and talk. about the red chair experience.
Okay. Well, here, this is what it looks like. That's the book.
Yep.
So
It's a
it's
picture of a red chair, red
it's
chair
well,
experience.
it's not just any red chair. That is my red chair.
Very
That's
good.
the one that sits in my master suite. But
Nice.
that chair actually has meaning to me. It was owned by my previous business mentor, which was my stepdad, and we lost him in 2016, and then it was passed on to my younger brother, who we lost in 2019, right? And
Mm.
so that's when it became mine, and I'm holding on to it in case my niece or nephew want it later in life. But that's where it sits. It's a place for me. It became, and the reason I called the book The Red Chair Experience is because it's a daily inspiration for success in life and business. You talked about your morning routine. You like to read in the morning and meditate or pray, right? Whatever you're reading, you want something that's going to inspire or help you to focus throughout your day. And that's really what this was written for. It was an intentional focus. And I wrote it when I was sitting in my red chair most days. So it's there's history there. There's a reason for it. But the red chair experience is, do you have a place that you can go to have this experience? It doesn't have to be a red chair. It could be a couch. It could be blue. It could be yellow. I don't care. It could be outside. It could be on your bike, and it could be, walking this, your path that you have near your house. It could be spending time at the ocean or spending time at a water, at some sort of a waterfall or even a river or something like that, right? It's finding that place that you can get into that, for lack of a better term, that Zen-like state where you can find what you need to find, right? Through meditation and prayer and just trying to find what works best for you to help you to positively move forward.
So it's like a thinking spot.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah. That's and it's so powerful, right? If you choose a spot, and it's even more powerful if you choose a time and you use the same time in the same spot every day,
Yeah.
it saves you those decisions, first of all, which
Right.
I'm a huge advocate of cutting decisions out of our lives so
Right.
that our mind is focused on the decisions that matter.
Yeah.
But creating a space and just giving yourself time, even if it's just 5-10 minutes a day in a
Yeah.
space that just is comfortable, it feels right, and you give yourself time for your brain to just go, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
powerful.
and like we were talking about earlier, Rob, the positive mindset, right? Getting rid of the negative thinking that we are so used to, and right, oh, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. Find something that speaks to you. Find that positivity that speaks to you. Pray, meditate. Again, something that's going to put you in the right frame of mind for the rest of the day. And it is important that you find a time. And me personally, I found that first thing in the morning works best for me. Some people, it's later at night, and that's okay, or in the middle of the day, whatever works best for you. But find that time, find that space, find that thing that will help you to get your mind right and put you in a better space.
So powerful. All right, what other elements of your routine have helped you, on your growth journey?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me it's surrounding yourself with the right people. And reading and I'm constantly trying to add more books to the book list that I have, right? I've got probably 20 books that are sitting on my next to my red chair that need to be read. And but it's just finding those things, right? And listening. And I read a book years ago called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And that helped me to understand how to just calm myself enough to be mindful of what's happening around me so that I could pick up on the things that are being given to me at this time, right? There are certain things that appear at the right time, right? And so if you're not listening, you'll miss it, right? So it's having the awareness and having the ability to be there, be present, as you mentioned earlier, right? To be present in these times so that you can hear what's happening around you and what's important.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of another book by, I think it's the same author. Well,
Living untethered. Untethered Soul,
Yep, that's the
Living
one.
Untethered. I just read
Yeah,
that one too.
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Yeah, the first
Yep.
chapter is like he was in my freaking head. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like because
Yeah.
he's really just talking about the voice in your head and
Right.
recognizing that the voice in your head is not you. And but
Right.
the way his descriptions of the voice in your head, I'm like, oh, dude, you were in my head. Like, get
You
the
are
heck out
so
of
in
there.
my head right now. I don't appreciate this. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. But
fun.
it's a powerful message, right? It
Yeah.
I mean, a big part of my coaching, a big part of your coaching, it sounds like, is really helping people separate themselves from that voice in their head and
Yeah.
and take control of it, right? And really,
Yeah.
reprogramming their subconscious so that the voice is working for you instead of against you.
Right.
And it's
So
crazy.
true.
Like, why would I have this voice in my head that's working against me? But
Yeah.
it really is a remnant of our survival brain.
Yeah.
The brain trying to protect us from the tiger outside the door, even though we haven't had tigers outside the door in hundreds of years.
Right.
Now we've got all this information overload, so the brain's got all kinds of stuff to, data to
Yeah.
use.
No, and we go into this fight or flight, right? We go into the amygdala and it's fight or flight. And that's what that part of the brain is for. And so if we get put in that situation, it's go time or I'm taking off, right?
Yeah,
So that's what we're taught to do. And that's what our brain teaches us to do. And too often we hear these messages that are mixed and they mess with us instead of listening to the calm serenity, right, that is surrounding us. And it's not, to your point, we haven't had tigers sitting outside our door for years. So,
but yet the brain is still acting like it. And the worst thing, I think, is we don't understand the chemical reaction, right? The adrenaline and cortisol, that if you let the brain trigger fight or flight, it's going to dump cortisol and adrenaline into your body. And that's designed for fighting or running.
Right.
It's not designed for sitting on the couch.
No, it is not.
And I think our culture is an epidemic of this state of anxiety and stress, causing the brain to be in fight and flight, causing the body to be experiencing all these negative chemicals that it's just not designed for sitting still. And of course, if you got those dump and you go out and you run a marathon or you fight a bear, right? Then you're using those up. But and men were lucky. I mean, I think men are lucky because men process those chemicals even sitting still in about 8 hours. And so they go away. It takes 24 hours for women's bodies to fight those, that those chemicals pass. And so it's crazy, the science that's backing all of this up, right? This, Norman Vincent Peale wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, and everybody's like, oh, it's just woo-woo, and, oh, it just feel good. But the truth is that when you have these positive thoughts and you have this positive thinking, your brain dumps all these positive chemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and other endorphins that are just helping you feel better. It's designed to make you happy and experience joy. And guess what? It helps you control the fight or flight.
Right.
So
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And Joe Dispenza, who's a chiropractor, but he's studying all this brain stuff, and they've scientifically shown that there's about 10 seconds, right? An event happens and there's about 10 seconds that you get to choose.
Yeah.
Right. You get to say, okay, wait, is this a bear?
Yeah. What is
or
this?
Is this just some crazy drama? Right. And if you choose the bear, you're going to get that adrenaline dump and you get to run and you get to save yourself as long as you're faster than your friend. But if you choose to say, all right, wait, this is just drama, I can see the truth in this and I don't need to get involved, and your brain doesn't dump those nasty chemicals in there, and you don't experience all this.
And then you don't have to have the downtime. Yeah.
Yuck. Right. Exactly. And I don't think enough people know about this. Like, we need to get the word out there and take responsibility, be intentional. And I love how intentional you are about putting positive stuff into your mind, feeding yourself intentionally, and helping other people recognize, look, if you intentionally take control of this thing, it actually works for you.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? That we're intentional about it. Because too often I think there are people, I know several people that are like, well, if it happens, it happens. I'm like, okay, but we can intentionally do some of these things to make them happen. So,
and obviously there's a lot of people that are just stuck in their comfort zone, right? They're stuck in the rhythm of life, thinking that this is all there is. They get up in the morning, they coffee, breakfast, go to work, come home, have a beer, kiss their family goodnight, and go to bed.
Right.
and they're literally living for the weekend because that's the time they get to do something fun, and
Right.
and they're not the majority of their time, the 168 hours a week that they're awake, they're missing out on
Yeah.
being able to experience joy and pleasure. And of course, there's an epidemic of depression in our country right now
Right. Yeah.
because we've got a bunch of people that are just going through the motions.
Yeah. And we're not communicating. Yeah.
Ooh, absolutely not and not believing that there's something better. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the people that are in that place that are experiencing that feel like that's just what life is.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way. And people
No.
like you and I need to keep telling them, look, there's
Right.
opportunities out there. There's, and I'm going to share this. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're sharing these stories of Dose of Hope, and these are just inspirational stories, like little TEDx talks in a story.
Yeah.
And our goal is to get 5,000. And I think I'm going to send an invitation to Chris, and we'll get his story in here. And
Oh, thank you.
I want to share inspirational stories. I want to share inspirational things. I want to share positive living, right? My goal
Right.
and add value to business, add value to life, add value to entrepreneurs is to help make people feel better. And
Sure.
sometimes that just starts with a smile, right?
Right.
And the smile is so
Huge.
powerful.
Yep. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, this is great stuff. Great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Want to dig in. What do you love to do in your free time?
Oh gosh. I do. Believe it or not, I spend my weekends typically at Habitat. I like to help out there on Saturdays, building homes and helping people, get a helping hand up. And the other thing is, I mean, I like to, when I can, I like to golf when I can find time, and I do yoga and right. I find other activities. I do like to read, so I never thought I'd say that, but I'm learning, to really enjoy reading and that kind of stuff, and spending time obviously with my family.
All right, let's dig into the family a little bit. This is typically my most challenging question. So,
Okay.
what's your most memorable date with your wife?
Oh gosh. Well, that's tricky. So,
I told you
that's kind
it's
of,
the toughest
well,
question I ask.
well, there's a twist. So I'm not married. So that's where that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. It's tricky. So,
So it doesn't have to be your wife. You can pick
yeah,
anyone.
thanks.
Favorite date with your
Um,
daughter?
Well, and I was talking to my daughter yesterday about some of the things that we've done. We've gone on cruises, and we've gotten to see different things, and we swam with the dolphins, and um, so I mean, there's so many things that we get to do. But man, some of the most memorable things for me, it's just the experience. It's just being in a situation where you can have a real conversation and you're getting to know that person, and whether it's your spouse or your kids or whomever, I learned years ago, it becomes more about the experience than it does about the event, right?
What should be?
Well, that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
What I've learned is, for me, it became it. I started collecting and drinking more bourbon years ago, and I say drinking more because I have a collection. But what I would do is I would long for the sit down. Let's have a good bourbon or a whiskey or scotch, and let's just have a conversation, and let's just maybe a glass of wine or whatever, right? Yeah, fruit juice, I don't care, but it becomes these deeper conversations, right? That you're not just how's your day, what's going on. It becomes the deeper conversations, and the woman I'm dating right now, that's the thing is when we go out to dinner. And we go out to dinner about once a week, but when we go out to dinner, the conversations that we have at dinner, it's a 2-hour event. Dinner is, I mean, we eat for about 30 minutes, but it's the conversation that we have, right? It's the hour plus of conversation that develops around all of that stuff. And for me, that's more of the magic. That's more of the where you get to see and hear and learn more about someone else.
Nice. Yeah. So powerful. All right. So with all the business success you've had, what's been one of your biggest challenges?
Starting my own business. I mean, that really was that was a big task, right? And I struggled with the negative thoughts that everybody struggles with. Can I do this? Can I make money? Can I, right? And I remember saying to myself when I first started, I said, I'll know in the first 4 to 6 months whether or not this is going to fly. And people around me were like, what do you mean? And I was like, I'll know in the next 4 to 6 months if this is a valid, right, thing to do. And I was making money within the first 4 to 6 months. And so, it was beyond paying the bills. I was making money. And I was like, okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. Maybe I do have the right people. Maybe I do, right, know these things. And so it was a huge testament to me that I can be successful and I can do these things that I wanted to do. And that was right, kind of the bigger, kind of the big pat on the back, right? That you're doing fine and you're doing the right things. Keep moving this direction. So
Nice. And what has been the power of mentors in bringing that about?
gosh, um, I've learned so much in the last, well, really in the last month about masterminds. And I know you talked about mentoring, but mentoring, excuse me, mentoring has been a huge part of my life for a number of years. And then this concept, this idea of masterminds has kind of shifted my thinking, and it has helped me to understand that, hey, a mentor is great, but many mentors is even better, right? And not in the negative sense from the biblical, passage, gather around you a great number of teachers to hear what your itching ears want to hear. It's beyond that. It's gather around you a great number of teachers to help you to move forward, right? And to expand your thinking and to expand your abilities. Because this whole idea that, and Napoleon Hill did a TV series on it years and years ago. I think it was 67 or something, but he did it. And he talked about this mastermind principle. And the mastermind principle is where you gather two or more people with a similar focus, with a similar mindset, and a similar drive. And what you do is you'll learn more by combining your efforts with this other person or persons than you would ever learn on your own, ever. And what they found is that when you have these mentoring or mastermind groups, you learn so much more within 1 year that you can literally take your business to new heights.
Absolutely. Love the mastermind. Love
Yeah.
that. Not just conceptually, but the power of a group of people in the same room aligned with the same purpose, even
Yeah.
if you're growing different businesses, right? As
Right.
entrepreneurs, but your purpose is the personal growth and development necessary to grow your business, have a bigger impact.
Right.
It is so powerful. It's a multiplier, not an addition, not an adder.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I think until you've experienced it in that way, that it defies explanation.
It really does. It's hard to explain to people the benefits that you can and will receive by being a part of a mastermind or a mentoring group, right? But what I found is I wouldn't be where I am today with my business a year and a half in if I didn't have my Red Chair Council. And I do have a Red Chair Council. But uh, having them to be a part of my life and me a part of theirs, we've all seen things that we've grown in. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that our business has grown, right, financially, but maybe our business in here has grown, right? And our ability to think differently and right way outside of the box and nonlinear and all that good stuff, right? Take all of that and what you gain from that and the years that it will, how long it will help you is really the other benefit of it. And it's not just for the here and now, it's really for the distant future too.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Chris, what's your big dream?
What's my big dream? Right now, my big dream is to have the book in front of 100,000 people over the next 3 years.
Nice.
And not from a financial standpoint, but from truly from helping people. I want people to feel the impact and be inspired and motivated from the book. And then as a side piece of that, it's being able to help individually, right? It's being able to do the coaching or the mastermind groups and facilitating those to get and help people that need help, right? They need someone to or someone's to help them to move their business or their personal life.
Nice. So good. All right. You've spent an hour, young entrepreneur across the table from you, and you want to leave them with Coach Chris Michel's words of wisdom. What would you share?
If you don't have one, get a mentor. If you don't have people in your life that are supporting you and helping you in the direction that you want to grow, change your friends, change your peer group, change those around you, because you can't do this alone. As much as you want to, don't do this alone. Get help from other people. And if you don't have the right people, find the right people.
So powerful. Chris, thank you so much for hanging out today and sharing this conversation. And I love all that you shared, and appreciate your vulnerability and helping people talk about difficult conversations. And so those are really important too. And just appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So thanks.
If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, or leave a review. We have a free gift for you at addvaluemindset.com. That's addvaluemindset.com. We've collected some of the best mindset secrets shared by successful entrepreneurs on our podcast, and we want to give them to you for free. addvaluemindset.com. In our next episode, Jamie McKinney shares with Robert Noel about being a woman in male-dominated industries. She's working now to help women develop the confidence to play bigger, to act like equals, and get the outcomes they deserve. We need more voices at the table in leadership at all levels. Jamie wants to help women see the power of collaboration and step into their greatness to increase their impact.